All right, welcome. You ready? Today, we're going deep on something pretty fundamental, I think you'd agree. How to cultivate well-being and happiness, basically how live a good life.
Big question.
Big question, yeah. Our guide for this journey is this book called CóMO Hacer que te pasen Cosas Buenas. And then there's a subtitle in Chinese. You can check the show notes for the full title. It's a bit of a mouthful. But, think of it as a concentrated, like a super concentrated dose of wisdom. We're pulling out the most vital, actionable insights.
Yeah, actually.
From, why are connections with other humans so important, to the surprising power of our thoughts and emotions, like how that affects our physical and mental state. It's all connected.
It really is.
And our mission here, what are we trying to do? Just equip you, right? Give you the knowledge to understand what are the key elements of a happier, more resilient life.
Yeah.
Without you having to, slog through hundreds of pages. And what's cool about this source material, it's not just like a dry textbook. It blends. It's like there are personal stories in there. There are compelling case studies. There's some interesting scientific ideas woven in.
Yeah.
All aimed at sort of lighting this path toward a better life. So, ready to dive in?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Okay, so right off the bat, as you start exploring this book, what jumps out at you? What's the first thing that kind of grabs your attention?
It's the emphasis on, well, something we might overlook, I think.
Yeah.
This potential for, unexpected connections. Like the story the author tells about meeting a former CIA agent on a flight, totally random, just highlights how opportunities can just appear when we least expect them.
Right.
But only if we're open,
Yeah.
we're actually observant. It makes you wonder, how many moments of potential connection we're just missing every single day.
Yeah, totally. Makes you
Yeah.
want to be more present, right?
Exactly.
Like more aware. And it's cool because this whole idea of connection, right? It's not just some fluffy feel-good stuff. This is backed by, decades of serious research. Oh, yeah.
The Harvard study of adult development. This thing is legendary.
75 years.
I know. It's incredible, right? They follow these people for 75 years, and now they're even following their families. It's wild. When you look at that huge amount of data, what are the big findings? Like, what really stands out to you?
When you take that step back and see the big picture, the Harvard study, it gives us this compelling evidence for something, I think we all kind of know it, but we don't always appreciate it. The profound impact of good relationships. It turns out the quality of our connections, that's a far stronger predictor of our long-term happiness and even our health than, things like wealth or fame.
It's easy to get caught up in those things, You think, if I just had this or that.
Right, exactly. But the data's clear. Connections matter more.
So there are these 3 core takeaways that really resonate from the study. Can we break those down? What are the things we should really be paying attention to here?
Absolutely. Firstly, and maybe this is the simplest one, relationships are genuinely helpful, right? Just helpful, flat out.
Yeah. The study consistently shows that people who have these strong social ties, whether it's family, friends, community, whatever, they're just happier. They're physically healthier. They even live longer
Wow.
than those who are more isolated.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about, longevity.
It seems to be linked, yeah. I mean, think about your own life, right? You probably have examples where, going through a tough time, that supportive relationship was what helped you get through it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the second takeaway, this is where it gets a little stark, is the danger of loneliness. The Harvard study, it reveals that, it's not just a bad feeling, this loneliness thing. It carries serious health risks.
It's that significant.
It is. It can actually elevate the chances of developing Alzheimer's, even shorten your lifespan. That's a powerful insight into just how fundamental this need for connection really is.
It's a primal thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, this is crucial. It's not just about how many people you know. It's the quality of those relationships that matters. Being in a relationship that's full of conflict or where you just feel emotionally empty, that can be just as damaging, if not more so, than being alone.
Makes sense. It's like you can be surrounded by people and still feel totally alone.
Exactly. It's those warm, healthy connections. That's the key. They act like this buffer, against the stresses of life.
Okay, so that point about quality over quantity, that really hits home. It feels like, with the way things are in the world today, this feeling of isolation, it's becoming more and more common.
It is, and it makes you wonder why. I think modern society, with this emphasis on individualism, and, we're so reliant on these digital interactions now, it can lead to fewer meaningful face-to-face connections.
And it's tricky because online interaction, it can feel like connection.
Right.
But it doesn't always provide that deep sense of belonging, that real support that actually nourishes you.
Right. Exactly. So it becomes this balancing act. How are you balancing those different types of connections in your own life?
Good question for everybody listening, right? Like, where's your balance?
Yeah.
So we talked about the emotional benefits, but it goes even further, right? These good, warm relationships actually have this kind of protective effect on our physical health. I mean, the book talks about lower cholesterol, even better brain health. That's wild.
What's fascinating is how directly our social lives and our physical well-being are connected. The Harvard study found people in satisfying relationships tend to have lower cholesterol levels
Oh, wow.
compared to those who are more isolated.
Yeah.
And it gets even more specific. People who reported high marital satisfaction in their 50s, they were often the ones in the best health in their 80s.
So a happy marriage equals a healthier you later in life.
That seems that way, yeah. And it's not just the body. Strong relationships protect our brains, too. Secure connections in later life that's linked to lower risk of dementia. Whereas those who are more isolated, they tend to experience memory decline earlier. So it's almost like our relationships are keeping our brains healthier.
Okay, so we're starting to understand why these good relationships are so vital, right, to our well-being. But then the next question, the question for you listening is, how do we build these connections? How do we maintain them? And the book, it gets pretty practical here. There's some concrete advice.
Oh, absolutely. And the foundation really is this ability to genuinely connect with others. Foster a positive atmosphere when you interact. It starts with truly being interested in the people around you, their lives, their work, their well-being. It's about going beyond those surface-level conversations.
Deeper, yeah.
Being genuinely curious. Think about how it feels when someone asks you about your day and you can tell they actually care about the answer.
You can feel the difference, can't you?
It makes you feel seen, like you matter.
Totally. It's not about prying, it's about caring.
Exactly. And the book gives some really concrete ways to show that you care. Like remembering those important details about people.
Like little things.
Yeah, things that might seem small, but they make a big difference. Remembering names, family details, maybe something they've shared, a concern they have. It shows you're present, you value them. Like that example of David Rockefeller.
I read about that, yeah.
He had this meticulous system, right?
Right.
For remembering people. And the author's own father, he kept these detailed notes about everyone he met. These small actions, they made people feel seen and important.
Yeah, seen.
And think about work, right? Taking the time to understand what your colleagues do, the challenges they face, even their interests outside of work. That builds stronger bonds. You work better as a team.
Makes sense. And there was this one piece of advice that really stuck with me. Avoid criticism. It seems like empathy is crucial here.
Right, because judgment, that can be a huge barrier to connection. Empathy, that's the pathway to friendship. So approach others with understanding, not immediate criticism. You create a safer space for them to open up. Of course, the author also wisely points out that sometimes there are truly harmful individuals.
Right.
And in those situations, establishing distance, that's self-care. That's about protecting yourself.
It's a good point. There are times when you have to step back. So, another interesting point. Don't impose your views on others. It's more about leading by example, like walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yeah, and that requires a certain level of self-awareness, doesn't it?
For sure.
Trying to force your beliefs or values onto someone, that usually just leads to resistance. You could damage the relationship.
You're more likely to push them away.
Right, exactly. True influence, it comes from living in accordance with your own principles, letting your actions speak. People are far more likely to be influenced by what you do consistently, not by what you say you believe.
So be the change you want to see, basically.
Exactly. And then there's that story about the Starburst candies in Cambodia. Talk about finding common ground.
I know, right? What a story.
But it really illustrates this point, this desire for connection that we all have, even in the most difficult situations. The author using Starburst candies to build rapport in these really challenging situations. It shows that shared interest, no matter how small, they can break down those barriers. It's about finding that common ground. And in your own life, actively seeking out shared hobbies, interests, that could lead to stronger relationships.
It's like the foundation, right? Finding that connection point.
It is.
And then there's, something as simple as smiling and laughing. Seems obvious, right? But the book brings in some fascinating research on the impact, and it goes way beyond just feeling good.
Yeah, the science is amazing. It really backs up the power of positive emotions. like Alice Eisen's work, at Stanford. Joyful emotions, like those sparked by a smile or laughter, they boost our cognitive abilities. Creativity, organization, problem solving, all that stuff. And it's probably because of this increased blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain that handles all those higher level functions.
That's not just feeling good, it's literally making your brain work better.
Yeah. And then there are studies linking happiness in the workplace to increased productivity. People perform better overall. So it's not just this emotional boost. It has real cognitive benefits and even economic benefits.
So smile more, everyone. Get those brains working. Okay, another thing that stuck out to me, the emphasis on singing, especially with other people, the Sing Your Heart Out project, and then Inigo Profana's orchestra, working in those really challenging environments. It's like music has this incredible power to connect us.
It speaks to this human need for shared experiences. And music just resonates emotionally, right? It taps into something deep. The Sing Your Heart Out project, it showed how group singing can have a positive impact on mental well-being, social skills, even fosters a sense of belonging.
Feeling like you're part of something.
Exactly.
Sure.
And then Inigo Profano bringing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony to people in prisons, hospitals, refugee camps. It's amazing. Shared musical experiences, they can transcend these difficult circumstances, create this sense of connection, even joy. So maybe the takeaway is engaging in these collective activities that involve emotional expression. That can be really beneficial.
Powerful stuff. And then the book goes on to give more of this practical advice, right? Help others, but don't expect anything in return. Be willing to show vulnerability, to be open, offer praise instead of criticism, and tap into the power of storytelling. There's this whole thing about how storytelling releases oxytocin, activates mirror neurons.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
All of these are key ingredients in building strong, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Helping others selflessly, that builds goodwill, right?
Yeah.
It strengthens the bonds within a community. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to seek support when you need it. That fosters deeper connections.
Lets people in, right?
Exactly. And praising others, that encourages positive interactions. It builds self-esteem.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
Right. And then storytelling, the book emphasizes this. It's this powerful tool for emotional connection. It triggers the release of oxytocin, often called the love hormone. It promotes empathy, trust, and then the activation of mirror neurons, those brain cells. They allow us to almost feel and understand the emotions of the person sharing the story. It's incredible.
It's like you're stepping into their shoes, right?
Exactly. Like that story of Luis and Daniel in the hospice and that image of the imaginary garden. It's so powerful.
It really stuck with me. And then there's this emphasis on strategy. It might seem strange, but the book says we need strategy in all our endeavors, even relationships.
Absolutely. Approaching things with intention, with care. That's essential.
Yeah. And then it seems so simple, but the power of politeness. Just those basic please, thank you, sorry moments.
Those go a long way.
They do. And the book really hammers this point. You've got to invest effort and care into relationships if you want them to flourish. You have to be willing to give, not just take.
Right. It's about being someone others value, someone they can rely on.
Just someone you want to have around.
Yeah.
Okay, the section on kindness and friendliness, that really hit home for me, especially the story about Harvey, the fruit shop owner. The book actually defines friendly as like lovely, pleasing. And it turns out being friendly actually has these positive biochemical effects on us.
Isn't that amazing?
It's wild.
Kindness and friendliness, they actually benefit us physically. They stimulate the release of endorphins. Those have mood-boosting and pain-relieving effects.
It's like a natural high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they lower your cortisol, with stress hormone.
Yeah.
And they increase oxytocin, the love and trust hormone.
So it's a positive spiral. Kindness leads to good chemicals, which leads to more kindness.
It's a beautiful cycle. And Harvey's story, it shows how consistently treating people with kindness can make your life better and the lives of those around you better.
It ripples out. But then there's that case study of Susanna, right?
Yeah.
It's a reminder that kindness is vital, but you've got to have healthy boundaries too. You've got to protect yourself.
Right, because kindness shouldn't come at the expense of your own well-being.
Yeah.
Susanna's story, it highlights what can happen when you're, maybe too nice. You let people take advantage of your generosity.
You get walked on.
Exactly. Healthy relationships, they need mutual respect. They need clear boundaries. So it's about being compassionate, but not letting yourself be exploited.
Finding that balance.
Exactly.
Okay, last thing on relationships, oxytocin, the love hormone. It turns out it's not just about romantic love.
It's much broader than that.
Yeah, it even influences things like trust and financial decisions. I mean, who knew?
Right. But it makes sense when you think about oxytocin's role in building trust and empathy, social bonding. Ernst Fair's research showed that oxytocin can actually increase trust in financial situations.
It's like a trust elixir.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
And higher levels of oxytocin are linked to feelings of love, compassion. It makes it harder to hold on to resentment, anger.
So more oxytocin, less anger. I like that equation.
Right. And it even has this calming effect. It dampens activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that handles fear.
No.
So less anxiety, fewer negative thoughts. It really reinforces the idea that positive social interactions can have this huge impact on your overall well-being.
You know, the book encourages us to, even with someone we find challenging, try to practice building connection and empathy.
It's a good challenge, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Okay, so we've covered human connection, why it's so important. Now the book takes a turn inward. It starts talking about our inner resources, resilience, and the power of our beliefs and memories. This is like the second pillar.
Absolutely. And the concept of resilience, the way Boris Cyrulnik talks about it, it's central to navigating life's challenges, you know. And Cyrulnik's own life, surviving the Nazi invasion as a kid, that gives his insights so much weight. He says resilience isn't just about bouncing back from adversity. It's about doing so without those lasting negative effects, and ultimately being able to find happiness.
So it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving after the fact.
Exactly. And he talks about this double hit theory of trauma, which is fascinating.
Yeah, what's that all about?
It highlights that trauma isn't just about the initial bad event. There's this second hit, which comes from the environment's reaction to the person who's experienced the trauma.
Oh, so how other people respond.
Exactly. Things like rejection, lack of understanding, even blame. That secondary response, that can be more damaging in the long run. It can really hinder healing.
It's like adding insult to injury.
It is.
So Cyrulnik lays out these three pillars of resilience. The individual, their social and family background, and then the broader social environment. Can you unpack those a bit?
Sure. The individual pillar, that refers to our capacity for secure attachment. Cyrulnik sees this as a fundamental building block for well-being.
Like a secure base.
Right. Then the social and family background, that emphasizes the importance of support from loved ones when you're navigating trauma. But remember the double hit theory. This support can also be a source of harm if it's not there or if it's negative.
It's a double-edged sword.
It can be. And finally, the social environment. That includes the broader societal and legal support systems that are available. And there's that case study of Lucia.
Oh, what happened with Lucia?
She experienced sexual abuse, and she was able to overcome that trauma, largely because of the unwavering support of her parents.
So that's an example of the family support really making a difference.
A powerful example.
Yeah.
And it all points to this idea, you know, overcoming setbacks, having that ability to get back up. That's what happiness really is. It's not about avoiding difficulty.
It's about navigating it.
Exactly. And the book makes this point. Happiness isn't about a life free from hardship. It's about how you navigate those difficulties, how you keep moving forward.
How you bounce back.
Exactly. Setbacks are a part of life, and your ability to recover, that's key to your well-being, to your sense of fulfillment.
So then we get into managing our inner thoughts.
Yeah.
Not letting ourselves get stuck dwelling on past traumas or worrying about the future. It's about finding balance in the present moment, which I think a lot of us struggle with.
We do. Getting trapped in those cycles of rumination about the past or constantly worrying about what might happen. It's so draining.
You get exhausted just thinking about it.
It prevents you from really engaging with the present. And the book reminds us, time can shift our perspective, but it doesn't automatically heal everything. We have to actively work on transforming pain into strength, learning from our experiences. That's what allows us to move forward.
So it's not passive, it's an active process.
It is.
And that leads to this concept of balance, right? Maintaining inner peace, even when things are chaotic, and being proactive, taking control of your path instead of just reacting to whatever comes at you.
That's the idea. Balance isn't about being perfect. It's about having that inner equilibrium so you can handle life's ups and downs without getting totally overwhelmed.
Riding the waves.
Yeah, like surfing. And having those long-term goals, a sense of purpose that acts like your compass, helps you stay oriented even when unexpected stuff happens.
You know where you're headed.
Right. The book says without that sense of direction, it's easy to feel lost, like happiness is this unreachable thing.
Okay, so goals are important. Got it. Now the book talks about encouragement and active listening, and it connects that to the placebo effect. And it talks about the importance of the connection between a doctor and their patient.
This part is fascinating because it shows how human connection and belief can have these real, tangible, even physical effects.
Wow.
Like that study in the Journal of Pain, it found that a patient's confidence in their doctor could actually reduce their experience of pain.
So believing in your doctor makes you feel less pain.
It seems so, yeah. It highlights how important encouragement is, empathy, really listening to someone. Those things can be part of the healing process.
Wow.
And it might even trigger these positive physical responses, similar to a placebo. Think about it. Your words of encouragement to someone, they can actually have an impact.
That's powerful. So then there's this exploration of the potential benefits that can come from suffering, which at first glance sounds a little strange.
It does, right? Who seeks out suffering? But the book suggests that suffering can lead to personal growth, to deeper self-reflection, even increased empathy for others.
It's like that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it suggests that going through tough times, navigating those challenges, learning from them, that can actually lead to a richer, more meaningful experience of happiness.
It's like happiness earned.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah. Okay, then there's this emphasis on having ideals and beliefs to sustain us through those really tough times. The book uses some powerful examples, people like Nelson Mandela, Viktor Frankl, individuals who faced incredible hardship, but they held on to their inner strength.
Right, those are such powerful illustrations of how strong ideals, deeply held beliefs, they can provide this incredible inner strength when you're facing immense suffering.
It's like their internal compass.
Yeah, exactly. Nelson Mandela's commitment to equality, Thomas More's devotion to his faith, Maximilian Kolbe's selfless sacrifice, those Russian soldiers in World War II, all these examples show the power of having something larger than yourself to hold on to when things are really tough.
It's like a guiding light.
It is. And then there's Viktor Frankl's concept of the last human freedom. It's his idea that even in the most awful circumstances, we still have the freedom to choose our attitude, to choose how we respond.
We always have a choice.
That's the key takeaway. That inner freedom, that ability to find meaning in suffering, it's incredibly powerful. It helps you navigate adversity, helps you preserve your sense of self.
It's about not letting the situation define you.
Right. But then the book cautions us against extremist ideals, those that might justify harmful actions. You know, it emphasizes the importance of conscience over what other people think. There's that great quote from Einstein, "The right to search for truth implies also a duty. One must not conceal any part of what one has recognized to be true."
So it's about being true to yourself, even when it's hard.
Exactly. Distinguishing between those healthy ideals that guide us towards good and those extremist ideologies that can be twisted to justify doing harm.
That's a fine line sometimes.
It can be. The book really underscores the importance of our own inner moral compass, and Einstein's quote reminds us that our conscience, that's our guide, not the opinions of others.
Okay, so our inner compass should guide us. Got it. Finally, we get to the power of cherished memories to help us alleviate suffering.
Oh, this is such a hopeful topic.
It is.
Viktor Frankl, observing people in concentration camps. He noticed that those who could hold on to positive memories, who had a strong sense of purpose, they seemed to have a greater capacity to endure.
Wow.
And then Herbert Benson's idea of remembered wellness, it suggests that recalling those positive, meaningful experiences, it can actually trigger the release of antidepressant chemicals in your body.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's actually changing your brain chemistry.
Right. Think about it. How does thinking about a happy memory make you feel?
Instantly lifts my mood, yeah.
And the science backs this up. So Sumitomo Nagawa's work, the guy who won the Nobel Prize, he did research at MIT that showed recalling positive experiences actually activates the brain's reward system.
So it's like your brain is reliving that positive experience.
It is. It activates those same pleasure centers that were active during the original event. So engaging with those positive memories, it's a powerful tool. It can counteract negative emotions, boost your mood.
So it's like a happiness hack. I like that.
I do too. And then there's this whole discussion about how our thoughts directly impact our bodies.
Yeah.
Like triggering the release of cortisol, the stress hormone. That example, someone yelling fire in a crowded theater,
Yeah.
that really illustrates the mind-body connection.
You can feel your heart rate going up just thinking about it.
Exactly. And your brain, it doesn't always distinguish between a real threat and a perceived threat, a thought.
Yeah.
So a worrisome thought, that can trigger your stress response.
So worrying is literally stressing out your body.
Yeah. Increased heart rate, sweating, cortisol, all that stuff, just as if you were facing an actual danger.
So we've got to manage those thoughts.
We do. And the book emphasizes that while cortisol is essential, it's good for us in short bursts.
Right, like fight or flight.
Exactly. But if it's elevated for long periods because of chronic anxiety, that's when it becomes harmful. It could have all these negative effects on our health, both physical and mental.
So chronic stress is the real enemy.
Yeah. And to understand that, we need to understand the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the sympathetic system, that's our fight or flight response. When we're stressed, that system kicks in. But the parasympathetic system, that's the rest and digest system. That's what helps us repair, regenerate, and maintain balance.
So we need both.
We do. But chronic stress, it keeps that sympathetic system activated, so the parasympathetic system can't do its job.
It's like your body is constantly on high alert.
Exactly. And that leads to all sorts of problems.
Which the book calls harmful cortisol. And it gives this long list of symptoms, everything from hair loss and muscle twitching to irritability and social isolation.
It's a long list, isn't it?
It is.
And it just shows how pervasive the impact of chronic stress can be. Physical symptoms, psychological symptoms, changes in behavior. And it even talks about the link between stress and physical pain, things like body aches, TMJ, your mental and emotional state. It can really manifest in physical ways.
It's all connected. And then there's that lemon visualization exercise.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's so simple, but it really shows how powerful our minds are, like how our thoughts can influence our physical bodies.
Right. It shows that your brain can influence your physical responses, even without a real stimulus. Just imagining biting into a lemon, you might start salivating more. That's your thoughts impacting your physical state.
Wow.
So managing your thought patterns, that's crucial for managing stress and well-being.
Okay, so as we wrap this up, I think the takeaway is that happiness and well-being, it's not about some external thing we need to find. It's about our connections with others, our ability to bounce back from challenges, and the power of our own minds.
That's a great summary. And there's no magic formula, but understanding these things, the importance of relationships, building resilience, and managing your thoughts, that's a solid foundation for a better life.
So as you're listening to this, think about which of those areas resonates most with you right now. Is it your relationships, your resilience, or how you manage your thoughts? And maybe even more importantly, what's one small step you can take today to cultivate greater well-being in that area?
It's about taking action, even a small step.
Right, because even small steps can lead to big changes.
They can.
So go out there and take that step.
You've got this.